All right, hello and good morning, students. Now today we're going to be taking a look at how fractions have to do with decimals. Now the first thing I want to take a look at is the base 10 grid. Now this base 10 grid right here that we have is equal to a flat, which is also called one whole. The first thing we're going to take a look at is the long. Now the long, if you notice, 1 fits right here. It would take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to fit the whole thing. In other words, a long is 1/10 of a whole. If you would like to take a look at it, it would look like this. A long is equal to a tenth. We can represent that by the decimal being 1/10, or we can represent this by a fraction being 1/10. Now, we also know that there are cubes. Now, a cube is not equal to a whole long. In fact, it would take us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cubes to equal 1 flat. In other words, in order to fill out this whole grid, it would take us 10 times as many cubes as it would take us longs. So, to figure this out, we can do 10 times 10, which means that it would take us 100 cubes to equal 1 flat. That would look like this. A cube is equal to 100 because it's 1 out of 100. We can represent it by decimal, as you can see, with 0.01. So, all of these go to equaling the whole, or the flat. Now, let's take this and look at it another way. I'm going to change the longs, cubes, and flats into a fraction. Now, if we had 3 longs and we put it on our grid, we're going to see it would be equal to 1, 2, 3 out of the total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 that we would need to create a whole flat. In other words, when we take a look at this, 3 we remember is equal to a tenth. So 3 longs is equal to 3 over 10. And we read that as 3/10. Now let's have you try. 5 longs would be equal to what fraction? Turn to a partner and see if you can tell them. At this time, you should have found that 5 longs is equal to 5/10. Now, let's take a look at cubes. Now, again, before we said that cubes are equal to 100, or 1 over 100. So, if we have 13 cubes, that would be equal to 13 out of the total of 100 that we would need in order to create a whole flat, or 1 whole. So, if 13 out of 100 is equal to 13 cubes, 22 cubes would be equal to this fraction. Again, at this time, what I would like you to do is turn to your partner and tell them what you would think. Thank you. You should have gotten 22 out of 100, or 22 hundredths. Now, what I'd like to show you guys is if we have a mixture of longs and cubes. Now, you may be asking yourself, wait a minute, Mr. O'Malley, how can we really do this? Well, we can understand that 4 longs is going to be equal to 4 out of the 10, and 2 cubes is equal to 2 out of the hundredths. So this is like 42 hundredths. So that would be over 100, we have 42. We can do the same if we have flats. Let's say I have 2 flats. Now, we already said that a flat is equal to 1 whole number. So that means I have to make the 2 a whole number, meaning a full 2. Now, this time I have 3 longs and 4 cubes. What I would like you to do is tell me what fraction I have after this. If you need a hint, go back to the 4 longs and 2 cubes. Turn to a partner and see if you can tell them. At this time, you should have gotten 34 over 100. Now, let's try something different. Since we can change longs, flats, and cubes into fractions, what I want to do this time is turn my fractions into decimals. So we can see here that we have 3/10. Now I'm going to change a fraction into a decimal by first looking at the bottom. I can see it's out of 10, so I know that the place value I have to go to is the tenths place. Now, I always should start off with my 0 if there's no whole numbers. Then I have my decimal. Now, I know that the tenths place comes right after the decimal. It's the first one. So I need to put 3/10, so that would look like this. 0 and 3/10, or 3/10. Try number 2. 4 out of 100. Now, since the bottom is 100, I know I'm going to go to my hundredths place. So that would look like this. 0, decimal point. Now I have nothing right now in my tenths place. So I'm going to put a 0 there, and I'm going to go to my hundredths place, which I know will have a 4 in it. Now, let's try one by yourself. We have 6/10 here. Now, think about it. What should you put down first? And then what should follow after the decimal? Go ahead, turn to a partner, and let them know. You should have gotten 0 and 6/10. Let's try it with hundredths. Now, we have 27 hundredths. What should that look like? You should have gotten 0 and 27 hundredths. All right, this time we're going to have whole numbers. So that means something has to come before the decimal point. So in this one, it's 2 and 8/10. The whole number is going to be 2, so I will put that before the decimal. And will be represented by the decimal point, and this time I have 8/10, which, just like any of our other problems that have tenths, tell me that I'm going to only have to go to my 10th place, which I will put an 8 in. Now, I'd like you to try 2 problems this time. We have 7 and 50 hundredths, and we also have 3 and 3 hundredths. Try to find those out on your own. Now, for 7 and 50 hundredths, you should have gotten 7, decimal point, 5, 0. Now, you'll notice that this is the same as 7 and 5/10. 50 hundredths is the same as 5/10 when we look at it. We can also do 3 and 3 hundredths, which is equal to 3, decimal point, 0, 3.